welcome everyone to the School Transportation Nation podcast. Bring you all the news from the pupil transportation industry. I'm your host, Tony Corpin, publisher of School Transportation News Magazine. I also have with me my illustrious co-host, Mr. Ryan Gray of School Transportation News, editor-in-chief. Ryan?
Hi, how's it going, everybody? Hope everyone's staying safe and healthy.
All right, I'm going to jump right into the conversation with the coronavirus and COVID-19 and find out how it's affecting school districts. What's it all mean? How can we really help each other? How can we communicate? How can we help the parents, the kids? I think really some of the big things we're seeing out there is school buses now transporting food versus students, and how districts are having to get creative, how they're using transportation routing software to kind of re-identify the students in need, dropping food off at bus stops, maybe even going home to school with that. There's lots going on. Ryan, I want to toss over to you, kind of talk a little bit about some of the school districts that you're seeing take a proactive approach. I know social media, there's so many people that I'm seeing online that are really coming together as a community.
Yeah, well, first of all, so according to Education Week, and they have a great resource out there on their website, edweek.org, they've been tracking in nearly real time, which amazingly so, using their own research as well as National Center for Educational Statistics. They've been providing a map that shows all of the states that are closed, and they've been, again, looking at all the number of school districts. So as of today, or actually as of yesterday, March 22nd, there were 46 states that have decided to close schools. A majority of those have closed schools across the board. So we're talking about at least 121,000 public and private schools are closed. So 54.5 million kids are at home right now. Again, either school has closed in one case, at least so far as of this recording. Kansas was the first state to say, hey, we're going to go ahead and end the school year. So they've gone ahead, they've cashed in or cashed out, and they're saying, hey, we're just going to hit reset. We're going to start up the new school year in the fall fresh. There might be some other school districts doing that, or states doing that as well. So really to your point, Tony, or your question, it's really the responses all across the board. A lot of our readers, of course, some of the more vocal ones have been sharing information on the food delivery. So a lot of these school buses are being used for these kind of mobile meals on wheels. A lot of children, of course, if they are home, they are not able to take advantage of free and reduced breakfast and lunch. So a lot of kids, unfortunately, in this day and age, they do not eat meals if they don't go to school. That's just a sad case, and this pandemic has really exemplified that, and in the importance that school and the school bus ride provides in so many children each day. So a lot of these school districts are utilizing their school buses. They're going out in the community. They're using existing routing software to reroute or utilize the existing system or the existing maps to go out and visit their students even at bus stops every day. So they're going to their normal bus stops in the morning, in the afternoon, and we've heard at least in a couple of instances also in the evening for dinner, so that these children and their families can access free food. There are also school buses being utilized to move medical equipment back and forth. A lot of the conversation on the news and in the different press conferences from the White House have talked about the importance of, for example, these masks that the doctors need, the nurses need in the hospitals. They're running gravely short on that equipment. So there's been a lot of donations by private industry. Manufacturers have completely, changed their model to start manufacturing these masks. So, and of course, medicines. So school buses are being utilized for that as well. Another example is internet, Wi-Fi. School buses are increasingly, in some parts of the country, becoming roaming hotspots with their Wi-Fi that has, really been developed for the school bus ride, especially longer routes, rural routes, to give students an opportunity to catch up on homework or get their homework done during the school bus ride, either in the morning or afternoon. Well, something that we've covered in the past, the potential of school bus Wi-Fi is that the school buses could be parked out in the community to provide internet access to some of those areas that don't get either any internet or very spotty internet. For example, even in Los Angeles, there are dead spots in the city of Los Angeles where the Wi-Fi, there's just not very many good options. So students now are staying home. We're hearing a lot about online distance learning that some school districts are going to, even with the Department of Ed in Washington, D.C. suspending state assessment tests for this school year. Still, many school districts are trying to continue their school day the best they can. They're ramping up toward that, and they're trying to utilize these one-to-one Chromebooks or laptops or tablets that a lot of these districts utilize and that children can take home. So they're trying to do more online assignments, even online classes. But again, if these kids in certain areas don't have internet, then they are going to be left behind. So we are seeing that mobilized as well. And then, also utilizing existing routing systems and parent communication systems to kind of reinvent those instead of using those for where's the school bus, where did Johnny get off. They're utilizing so a couple of companies in particular are utilizing their products and making it free to their customers and to others so that they can have better communications with parents, so they can actually push out notifications through the app, let them know about the aforementioned, school bus stops where food's going to be delivered, etc. So a lot going on out there. The playing field is just changing every day. Of course, we're, the updates on the spread of this virus and, the different CDC and White House updates, as well as at the state, we're getting new information almost every hour. So, we still have our ears to the ground, talking to a lot of readers. We just sent out a survey last week, and we already here in a matter of a couple of days have over almost 500 responses about what they're doing. So we're certainly, diving in and finding out what people are saying, getting back to them, and having a lot of conversations so that we can deliver some news updates to all our readers.
Yeah, Ryan, I know you talked about the Wi-Fi side of things. I know that we received a press release over at Khajiit with Austin ISD, and they talked about outfitting 534 school buses with the Khajiit Smart Bus Wi-Fi routers. And they set that up prior to this whole outbreak. But gosh, I'm betting they're glad they did, because here they are having the ability to kind of give that connectivity to their students. They're able to get out there and allow the district's Chromebooks to actually act as they were intended to do, right? That mobile learning. And you're shell shocked as a parent too. I mean, coming from that place, my wife is helping significantly with homeschooling our kids. And it's no easy task when you have another 2-year-old running around trying to keep them busy. And they give you a lot of work. And you're trying to do your best as a parent to educate the kids. So any tools that transportation is providing to help facilitate that is helpful. And, there's a lot of kids in need, and they don't have that. I was watching last night. There was a press conference, and they were talking about connectivity, and they said, yeah, connectivity is with cell phones. And I think that that's great, but maybe for your news, but I don't know if students can quite learn off of a cell phone quite as effectively as they can a laptop of some sort, where they're doing some meetings or getting information or reading content. You do what you got to do, but definitely I think having Wi-Fi accessibility is really a key thing. And And I think also one of the bigger things, Ryan, that I know has been brought up a ton by the readers is, hey, should we be paying our school bus drivers during this downtime, right? And I even noticed we have a poll on our website, had about 234 votes, and not everybody's paying. It was about 68% paying and the other percentage not paying. So, what does that all mean, right? How is this going to look after people are done when the dust settles from this? Is that 15 days, as the president's saying, and they'll reassess maybe another 15 days, another 15 days? So, inevitably, when school starts up after summer, for a lot of districts, where are they going to stand with drivers and pay? And what are you hearing, Ryan, in terms of driver pay? What's the impact that you're seeing?
Well, so far, I mean, again, that it's kind of all over the board. It depends again on when these different states or individual local school districts are closing to. And like you just said, we're playing this day by day. The White House last week said that they're going to give this 15 days, so essentially the end of the month, and then we're going to reset. Okay, where are we then? And then we'll make the next decision. A lot of these states are following kind of lockstep with that, where they're looking to at least officially right now close through the end of March. Others have been, more conservative. They're thinking, hey, we need longer time, spreading it out till mid-April, even late April. Like I mentioned earlier, Kansas went ahead and said, you know what, we're just going to end the school year. That of course has a lot of impact on what school districts are going to be able to do. Like you alluded to with our online web poll, 68% of our 233 readers said, yeah, they're getting paid or they're paying their drivers. Still, that leaves, 32% that are not. And that's a very real issue. And even on our Facebook page, we've written some articles already that talk about this, and that some of these districts are doing this to try to keep their drivers and their monitors as well as transportation staff keeping food on the table, keeping money flowing so that they can try to take care of their folks. That's just not the case everywhere. And on Facebook, a couple of people have commented and said, well, it must be nice because we're not getting paid. We're definitely doing our best to make sure no one falls through the cracks in our coverage. Really, trying to scour as many websites as we can. Like I mentioned, we sent out a reader survey earlier this week. We're really just trying to figure out what the pain points are, the new pain points, if you will, really. So much talk has been, up till now has been the driver shortage. Well, school districts, I think a lot of them are recognizing the importance of continuing to pay in this time because they know they're already hurting for drivers. You go ahead and just say, sorry, we're going to have to furlough you. We're not going to be able to pay you for the next month or two. Those people are right. They're gone. They're going to go find something else. We've seen in the news that Amazon is hiring like crazy right now, and other similar delivery services. We know that most of the restaurants are closed to patrons sitting in restaurant, but those delivery services, those gig workers, right, they're really taking off. So now as it is as an important time as ever for the industry to really galvanize and try to muster all the resources they can to make sure that they're paying their staff, keep them focused and dedicated to the mission, and not lose these people out of necessity. These folks, they need to put food on the table. They need to clothe their kids. So that is really a big issue right now. And it'll be interesting to see how this all plays out over the next month or two. Again, we don't know what we don't know at this point. A lot of districts and states, they're again going day by day. So it will be interesting to see how long this thing extends out and what that impact truly is to school budgets, because that's got to be an utmost concern for superintendents and school boards right now. In addition to just of course the safety and health of their staff, their kids, and of course the community.
Yeah, I mean, Ryan, we named this podcast "School Transportation Nation" because we're one nation of transportation professionals. But man, I'm telling you, everybody's coming together in our industry to help support each other and support the families and kids and the workers and employees. And I think it's really important that we all come together. It's just such an important time to be a human being, to be caring, compassionate towards others, and in this kind of time of need. And we're all in it together, right? We're all going down the river together. And I think that's the challenge, right? And the economy has never been just shut down on a dime. And clearly there is a serious impact from this virus, and there'll be a serious aftermath. And I think the big question too is the cure causing more pain than the actual virus itself? I saw that asked, right? Is it too much, right? At what point is the economic impact supersede the health impact? And they're really in trying to manage that, especially in Washington with all the political things going on there. And I think in the end, looking as a citizen, you just want things to stabilize because it feels very unstable, and you're like, hey, let's stabilize things. And I think like any worker would want to know, hey, my job is safe, right? I'm not in peril. But a lot of people are feeling that across the industry. You probably have friends that that are affected adversely, and those are challenging times for people. And I think that school transportation professionals, bus manufacturers, technology companies, everybody's thinking the same thing. Like, hey, what's the impact? When is life going to go back to normal? And everybody wants to know that. And I think we're all going to work towards that. And really, it's kind of this new normal. One person I was talking to recently said, the cleanliness of how we treat things is going to change. So maybe that also proves true with the cleanliness on our school buses, right? All these different technologies to keep the school bus clean now that have kind of come to the forward conversation and a little more proactive now. So we're a little more aware of the real impact of making sure you're in a safe, clean environment. I mean, Ryan, we were starting to talk a little more at one point about how to effectively clean your school buses. Now, some people are still operating, others are not, but those best practices are things that really we need to help instill. And I know you're working with your team on different content to cover those topics. Can you kind of dive into that a little bit?
Yeah. I mean, as I talked at the top, we're looking at anything and everything right now. Certainly we've put out an article already that did us a cursory look at what a couple of districts are doing in terms of disinfecting the school bus, and that whole conversation has changed. When you were talking, I was thinking about a student transporter that I was speaking to about just about 2 weeks ago, and at that point we had a web poll up asking if folks were taking extraordinary measures to desanitize and disinfect their school buses. And about that time, there weren't maybe 75 people had responded. And overwhelmingly, the number of people that said no, we're not. It was like about 2 to 1 that were saying no, they weren't doing anything extraordinarily. Well, that sure flipped in a moment, in a heartbeat, where suddenly we had over 200 people responding to the web poll, and it had completely flipped where it was 63%, I believe, we're doing something extraordinary. So it just showed you how that changed and how the news cycle really changed that conversation. And when I was talking to a student transporter a couple of weeks ago, I was mentioning that, some people were starting to talk about what they were doing using like these Clorox Total 360 systems and some of these like infrared cleaners and, a lot of high tech stuff that's normally used for the classroom being taken on the school bus. And the student transporter told me, again, this was about 2-3 weeks ago, oh, no one's doing that. Well, now they are. That's definitely the conversation. And if they aren't doing it, you better believe that they're trying to figure out, how do we get our hands on some of that equipment? It's not cheap either. Some of these systems are $2, $3, $4, $5,000. So certainly part of the survey that we just sent out, we are getting a lot of responses on that. Again, we're talking about districts that are paying, districts that are not. We are talking about the mobile food service, of course, a lot of issues. How this is changing, like you mentioned, how this is changing operations going forward. How even districts are maybe able to utilize this time to perhaps increase the maintenance of their buses, or do some inspections, do some installs. A lot of these buses, again, they're not running; they're just sitting there idle in a yard. Even if they are being used for food service, that's maybe a couple times a day. They aren't being used to the extent that they are during the normal school day. So districts are starting to look at how does this affecting our maintenance policies and procedures. And again, it comes back to staffing. If you're able to legitimately give workers something to do, it makes it a lot easier to justify, not only morally. That's a pretty that's a pretty easy justification to make to keep people paid in times like this, but just from a fiscal standpoint of, hey, we're trying to keep business as normal as possible, business as usual, amid all of this, craziness going on right now, and a lot of fear and unknowns. So those are just, a snapshot of some of the things that we're looking to cover. Mentioned earlier, of course, there's a lot of technology angles. And also to the driver shortage, I mentioned that, where the last time that we really saw the driver shortage get reduced significantly was the last time we had a really serious economic recession. That was, again, from the 2008 Great Recession. So in those subsequent years, those following years, that's when so many people were out of work because of the subprime craziness that went on in the housing market. That all those bubbles burst. A lot of people lost their homes, lost their jobs, and a lot of those people, where did they go to look for work? They went to school districts. They learned about school bus driving. Some of those people maybe did it for a stopgap. Others hopefully stayed in the career, and they're some of our leaders today. But we're looking at that possibility as well, where if districts can keep their driver rolls high, or as high as possible in times like these, keep their monitors and their routers and dispatchers and coordinators, mechanics, they can keep them in the fold right now. Hopefully, as we turn the corner on this thing, as maybe some other areas of the economy will struggle to rebound, hopefully school busing, a government funded entity, will be able to weather the storm a little bit better than the others. So just a microcosm of the issues that we're looking at right now.
I mean, Ryan, we definitely see school districts utilizing drivers to drop off food, right? Who knew we'd turn into like a Grubhub or a DoorDash for the kids? But, it's one of those things, though. You got to get creative. And I think ultimately, operationally, these are kind of ways to keep paying drivers, keep providing services to the community. I know we've got, school transportation professionals. Some of our alternative transportation companies are doing it. I know our contractors are out there doing it and trying to support their districts that they're doing. So, I mean, I think we definitely have a concerted effort, and the school transportation nation is definitely supporting it. So we think that those elements will really help us build trust with the parents, with the kids. I mean, I think it's really powerful, because when your school bus driver drives up and drops you off breakfast, lunch, how much trust is that driver building with that student over a lifetime? You can't even measure it, right? At the end of this, I think in crisis, trust is something that was built, and this is a great kind of just thing for the school bus industry to grab onto. School transportation is just doing the right thing at the right time. And this is very powerful stuff. And so I'm real proud of our industry. And I think everybody should give themselves a round of applause on that one. That's it's really good stuff. And ultimately, operationally, these groups, the companies, they're all looking at, hey, if we've got downtime for our buses, what does that mean? Hey, can we do that camera install now that we weren't going to do? Or hey, can we do some maintenance? Are there projects that we can tackle during this downtime that we can take on and get it done. I mean, Ryan, I've been talking to some people, and I definitely am hearing that story more and more in the industry, that we're hearing people saying, hey, I want to do that camera install now versus wait and like it's summertime. So, I mean, what are you hearing out there in the industry?
Very similar. Like I said earlier, this is an opportunity, if you will, and this is actually part of my thesis in my April column that'll be coming out. Is that in times like these, when there's a lot of uncertainty, the cream rises to the top, and of course, this industry is the creme de la creme, and it's been through so much in the past. It's so resilient, and in that resiliency, that breeds opportunities, potential solutions to challenges. And that's what, of course, that's the backbone of this industry. This industry has always been about, let's get the job done. We'll figure it out. Sometimes to its own peril, quite frankly, but it's out of that goodness of the collective heart that it's so important, the mission to deliver kids to and from school, that they roll with the punches. I hear that often, over and over. When I first got into this industry, nearly 20 years ago, it amazed me talking to folks about, we just roll with the punches. We'll get it done. We'll figure it out. We're used to it. So certainly, I think it's a tried and true group. It's a weathered group as an industry. And we are seeing folks say, hey, there's some opportunities in this. We've talked a whole bunch about, of course, the food delivery, and then there's the internet delivery. And I didn't mention before that, districts can look at this and say, okay, we don't have our buses running right now. Maybe they've already decided that they are going to transition to a new camera system, and they were going to have to wait and schedule that over the summer, and amidst, of course, summer school and activity routes and whatnot. Well, here's an opportunity. Can they get some of that done now? Can they get all of it done now? I was talking to a student transporter in New York State today, and was talking about that they're continuing to work actively with the New York State Department of Transportation, which oversees school bus inspections there. So school bus inspections are still going on. They're trying to of course, do it smartly. Everyone's trying to social distance, but they're looking at opportunities to get in front of this, so that when we do hopefully turn a corner, the industry hasn't missed a beat. We don't have a bunch of buses that haven't been touched in weeks or months, and then suddenly they need to be pushed into service. So certainly folks are looking ahead with that in mind.
Well, I think, Ryan, the message of that is be proactive, right? If you haven't thought about it, you guys should be thinking about it now. And how can you effectively operate as efficiently as possible? I mean, that's the mantra of school transportation, right? We want to be safe. We want to be efficient. So I think, start thinking about that with your team. Even though you may be at home, you guys can get on a call, shoot an email, start talking to your team about what does this all mean? How can we be proactive with our fleets and take advantage of these sorts of things? And the timing is just, what do you do with yourself? Everybody's kind of milling about, so don't be caught flat-footed. So, great point, Ryan, right? If the bus has got to roll, they got to roll. You might as well be game time ready for this whole thing. And I think that's what it really takes. And ultimately, technology is going to help us get there. So, you definitely see more and more advent of, mobile apps used in combination with GPS and routing software. And so now you've got this parent communication component, and, the different companies or districts have this kind of two-way communication with parents, because a lot of times, you see school districts communicating through social media, and not necessarily is that always the best way, maybe for a broadcast, but if you need to get more granular, talk to the students that are writing, this is a really great way to do it. So I think, again, these are untapped possibilities in a crisis is how do you leverage your routing or GPS partners, and how you should reach out to them, talk to them about the possibilities of what could I use your technology for, right? Maybe the original intent was, hey, I'm just communicating with my parents to let me know on bus arrivals. Well, now it has a whole nother purpose, has other capabilities. So, reach beyond the scope of what you originally thought it was going to be used for, and go to that next level. So I really think that there's huge opportunity there for us as an industry to learn from this crisis, and to walk away and say, hey, how can we apply some of the technologies we've already invested in and then make them work for us in these kind of unique situations, right? Hopefully this never happens again, but another crisis may come up and you'll be really happy that you've got this technology in place and you're able to kind of move it forward. And I mean, Ryan, what are you hearing in terms of districts leveraging kind of the technology component of communication with parents, or communication with students, or is that just people working with their technology partners in general? Give me some flavor on what you're hearing out there.
Well, so far, everything is really evolving. So we know that about a week ago or so, TransFinder came out and said that they were providing their Stop Finder free of charge for the rest of the school year, whatever that means. Now today, Tyler Technologies announced that its Traversa 360 ride is free of charge. We'll probably see more of that coming along. So I think that, this is evolving. We'll find out more. That's part of what we're reaching out to folks. Certainly, if you have some interesting stories, email us. Ryan at stnonline.com is my email. Definitely always down to have some good conversations with folks, figure out how they're learning, how they're using, how they're growing. So that's evolving right now. I think anecdotally, again, it comes back to utilizing this technology just to stay in touch with the parents. Like you mentioned, Tony, letting folks know that, hey, corner of Sycamore and Elm at 8:30 a.m. breakfast will be dropped off and bus 9:56, and going forward for the normal 8:30 drop off or pick up at that location. Just in times like these, it's so important to communicate, be transparent. That's what parents these days, especially the millennial parents, they demand it, they expect it. They don't understand why there isn't that transparency. There aren't apps. So it's looking for opportunities. It's finding new ways to accomplish things amid the new environment that we're in. So we're actively mining some of those stories. So all I can say is stay tuned. We hope to share more details on that shortly.
Well, thanks, Ryan, for those thoughts. And friends, that's pretty much it for today. We're really happy you're joining us for the first ever School Transportation Nation podcast with Ryan Gray, Editor-in-Chief, School Transportation News, myself, Tony Corpin, Publisher of School Transportation News. My email as well. Email me with questions, thoughts. It's Tony, Tony, at stnonline.com. We will see you again soon. Thank you so much for joining us. Take care and be safe out there.
Good. Be healthy.